Wow. Just finished this part and my mind is absolutely blown. Picking up after that rescue, the tension just ramps up. The negotiation with the Shin tribe? Pure genius. Watching our leader play dumb about the landslide while secretly planning to absorb them all was deliciously cunning. And the actual dam explosion scene, seriously, using nitroglycerin like that was just epic. The sheer power and the way it instantly intimidated John Mao. Chills. It perfectly showcased the protagonist's blend of ingenuity and ruthlessness, seeing the awestruck reactions of the Shin people arriving in Hanyang City, contrasted with the meticulous planning for land distribution and integrating everyone. It's incredible world building and strategy. This isn't just survival anymore. It's empire building, step by calculated step. I'm buzzing to see how this massive land reform plays out, and if John Mao truly accepts his tribe's fate. What happens next? Want your own territory and rations? Want to earn a living? Fine, land will be distributed, but you have to pay taxes. Thinking the taxes are a bit steep? No problem. You'll get some tax-exempt land too, so you can run aside. Hustle to support your family. So how do you get this tax-exempt quota? Simple and direct. Have children. Have one child. And the state, tribe, gives you 5 mu of tax-exempt land. Just giving birth isn't enough. You damn well better raise them properly. Raise the child to 6 years old, healthy and energetic, and you get another 5 mu. This benefit lasts until your kid grows up, gets married, and leaves the nest. By this calculation, a young couple working hard for 10 years could pop out 6 kids. Good heavens. Besides the basic 20 mu of grain fields and 20 mu of supplementary plots, the family could gain an extra 30 to 60 mu of tax-exempt land. Of course, this tax-exempt land isn't like opening a lucky packet, handed to you all at once, poof. It adjusts dynamically based on the number and health of your children. A child is born, the land increases, the child grows strong, more land is added. The child, if you fail to raise them well and the child dies, the land is confiscated. This forces you to take some responsibility for these young lives. Don't think giving birth is the end of it. Once you roll out this system, theoretically, the tragedy of having too many children to support should never happen. Think about it. A family of 8, parents plus 6 kids, has a total of 100 mu of land. Only 40 mu are taxed. The remaining 60 mu are tax-exempt. All the yield is yours. That's more than enough to feed this bunch of little rascals. Maybe even build up a little nest egg. When the children grow up and establish their own households, the state reclaims the tax-exempt land and redistributes it to the next wave of newcomers who need it. After the grown children marry, they automatically join this new cycle of get land by having kids. A perfect closed loop. The mental gears were turning, calculating shrewdly. You, after all, possess a modern soul and knew the score perfectly well. Modern taxes might seem fewer in name, but they hide in every nook and cranny, like the ubiquitous value-added tax. Trying. To bind people with rigid rules and laws easily breeds resentment. Human nature is perverse. Pile on the rules and they feel, my freedom is gone. So, rather than lecturing sternly about the law, it's better to entice them with naked self-interest. Confucians say at birth human nature is inherently good. Legalists counter, at birth human nature is inherently evil. You figured, what's the point of preaching benevolence, righteousness, propriety, and honor to these primitive people? Too much effort. Better to just lay the cards on the table. Do this, get benefits. Don't do it, face disadvantages. Simple, clear, lead with self-interest, and they'll run faster than anyone. Ultimately, isn't the relationship between people all about benefit? Some might argue, what about feelings? You scoffed. Don't feelings need bread to survive? Who wants to be friends with someone if it means losing out all the time? Who willingly gives without expecting anything in return? Besides, maybe your own parents, and even some parents can't manage that. Reality is just that stark. Therefore, the core of this multi-pronged approach was, first, crush them under heavy taxes until they can barely breathe, then point out a clear path. Have children. You could almost picture the tribespeople waving. Stone axes, fanatically shouting, "Get rich by having kids, answer the chief's call." This way, wouldn't the goal of making the population shoot up be achieved? Of course, this was a long-term plan. Its effects wouldn't be obvious for a generation or two. In the short term, the tribe would be full of little ankle-biters crawling everywhere. It looked populous, but they were all consumers, not producers. Benefits? None yet. It takes time for children to grow up. Not that having many children was bad, of course. Many children meant the tribe was vibrant, full of life, with a promising future. But the problem was, during the 15 years before, these kids grew into laborers. The tribe's development couldn't stagnate. It still needed an influx of outside population, which brought things back to the land issue. 2 adults marry and receive 40 mu of land. It's a decent size, but farming it is exhausting work, and the taxes are high. Want to lighten the load? Have kids. Get tax-exempt land. But a new problem arose. A baby is born, and suddenly there are another 5 mu of land. There's more grain and money. But the labor shortage gets even worse. The land is given to you, but if you don't farm it, will pies fall from the sky? Imagine, a young couple, originally farming 40 mu worked to the bone. Then the first year, the wife gets pregnant and can't do heavy labor. The entire 40 mu fall on the man's shoulders, enough to break even the strongest man. The second year, the baby arrives, adding another 5 mu. Great. Now the 2 of them not only have to care for an infant, but also toil away on 45 mu of land. They kept up a pace of 1 child every 2 years. My God, the workload would keep snowballing. Moreover, while pregnant and caring for infants, a woman is basically half, or even entirely, out of commission as a laborer and needs looking after herself. The family has more resources but nowhere near enough manpower. The adults are worked off their feet and still can't keep up. What to do? You scratched your head and came up with 2 questionable schemes. No, brilliant stratagems. Stratagem 1, bring in the beasts. Increase the per capita ownership of animal power like oxen, horses, and donkeys. 1 draft animal working is equivalent to 4 strong laborers. If every family had a draft animal, life would be much easier. How to implement this? A 2-pronged approach. State rental. The authorities set up a state-run livestock farm for unified breeding. Want to use an animal? Come rent one. For example, if you need to plow 10 mu and want an ox, pay up, rent one from the state for an agreed number of days and return it on time. Clearly priced, fair to all. Private purchase. Not only want an ox for plowing, but also want your own private vehicle, even if it's just a rickety flatbed cart, to haul some goods? Fine. Farm diligently for a few years, save up some money, and go buy an animal from the state farm. It becomes your private property. Use it however you like, as long as it's legal. Of course, these precious working animals couldn't just be slaughtered for a feast whenever someone felt peckish. Even in cases of accidental death, officials had to be sent to officially inspect and determine the cause. This wasn't just to prevent people from getting greedy and randomly killing oxen and horses. It was crucial for disease control. If an animal died from some infectious disease, the authorities had to deal with it quickly to prevent an epidemic breaking out. That would be a real disaster. Stratagem 2. Still need to get people. Livestock are useful, but they can't do everything. Even if your family has 2 draft animals, someone still needs to handle them, right? So here came your population expansion plan B. Compared to the long-term investment of getting rich by having kids, Plan B offered fast results. It could not only rapidly absorb outside populations, but also conveniently expand the Han tribe's territory. That was absorbing wildlings. Previously, wildling referred to scattered individuals wandering the wilderness, like lone warriors such as Xue. Now, with a wave of your hand, you redefined it. Apart from the official citizens of the Han tribe with registered households, everyone from other external tribes would be considered a wildling. How to absorb them? You revealed a benevolent smile. The authorities don't care about the methods. whether you trick them, capture them, trade for them, whatever means you. If you manage to bring people from outside into the Han tribe, you're considered capable. As long as you bring in a wildling and register them with the authorities, you legally own the right to use that wildling for 2 years. During these 2 years, you must provide food, shelter, and clothing, and teach them the Han language, and how to use Han farming tools. Of course, they must work for you, chopping wood, hauling manure, farming, serving you like beasts of burden. Once the 2-year service period is up, this former wildling, having learned the language, farming techniques, and Han customs, can go to the authorities, receive an identity document, and officially become a glorious, registered citizen of the Han tribe. Sounds a bit like encouraging people to capture private slaves? You rubbed your chin. It certainly looked like it, but you felt there was a fundamental difference. First, these wildlings weren't condemned to lifelong servitude. You provided them with a pathway to advancement. After 2 years of work, they could be elevated to become citizens of the Han tribe, equal in status to you, enjoying the same rights and social obligations. This point, you thought, was a stroke of genius. Think about it. What are typical slaves like? Endless work, rising early and sleeping late, poorly fed and clothed, sallow-faced, frequently whipped. And the slave owners, arrogant and abusive, hitting and cursing whenever they please. But under your rules, the wildling working for a master could become a master themselves after just 2 years. So here's the question. As long as you didn't work them to death during those 2 years, once they became a citizen equal to you, who knows what they might achieve in the future? What if they had potential and later became an official? Or what if they didn't succeed, but their son did? Once they or their descendants gained power and influence, wouldn't they come looking to settle old scores? Torment you relentlessly? The thought was terrifying. Conversely, if you treated them decently during those 2 years, helped them establish roots in the Han tribe, perhaps if they prospered later, they might remember your kindness and repay you. Considering this comparison, would you dare to brutally mistreat the wildling working for you? Abusing them brings momentary satisfaction but no real benefit, and creates a potential deadly enemy. Unless they were an idiot who would do something so foolish. One final safeguard, strictly preventing the private hoarding of slaves. You had to prevent people from exploiting loopholes, underreporting the number of wildlings, or secretly extending their service period, turning temporary workers into underground long-term laborers, and denying them their chance at citizenship. To counter this, you implemented a system combining collective punishment plus reporting. First, bringing in a wildling required immediate registration with the authorities. A temporary identity would be registered for the wildling, recording the service term, whose household they served in, and other information. The database would be kept meticulously clear. Dare to conceal them? You might fool the officials, but could you fool old Wang next door? You implemented military-style administration. 5 households formed a group of 5, 10 households, a group of 10, and 100 households a block. If you dared to hide a wildling in your home, keeping a private slave and your 4 neighbors in the same group of 5, failed to expose or report it, fine, collective punishment. 1 person breaks the law, 5 households share the guilt. Let's see who would dare cover for you. A whole extra person appearing out of nowhere, going in and out every day to work the fields. Did you think your neighbors were blind and deaf? Could you possibly hide it? By the same token, if a whole group of 5 concealed it and people in the same group of 10 didn't report it, 10 households punished collectively. If the entire group of 10 concealed it and people in the same block didn't expose it, the entire block punished collectively. The block leader would be immediately dismissed and investigated. Punishment alone wasn't enough. What if you encountered stubborn fools or officials who led the way in wrongdoing? Therefore, incentives were also needed. Discover someone harboring private slaves. Report it to the authorities immediately. If the report is successful and verified, the informant receives the grand prize of a 50% tax reduction. For example, according to the rules, your family harvested 1,000 jin of grain this year and owed 400 jin in taxes. But you reported your neighbor for keeping private slaves, performing a great service. Great, this year your family only needs to pay 200 jin, carrot and stick, hefty rewards ahead, severe punishments behind. You refuse to believe anyone would still dare to conceal crimes for others. Most likely, neighbors would be tripping over each other, racing to the authorities to sell you out, just to grab that tax reduction quota. Reviewing this combination of policies centered around land distribution, you calculated smugly. In the long run, the get-rich-by-having-kids method would stimulate natural population growth. In the short term, the absorb wildlings method could rapidly siphon off populations from surrounding tribes. Once the surrounding wildlings were all absorbed, transformed into new citizens of the Han tribe, these people could be relocated outwards, establishing commanderies and counties in new territories, stationing new personnel, and continuing to expand outwards, snowballing development. Of course, this policy wasn't a panacea. It had drawbacks. In this era, the population was limited, and land was vast but sparsely populated. Your method could indeed make the Han tribe inflate rapidly like a balloon, with territory and population booming. But the further along this path, the greater the potential problems. Once there was no new land to distribute, or the surrounding, wildlings were stripped bare, the fuel exhausted. Crises could erupt within the Han tribe. However, you shrugged. Governing was like crossing the river by feeling for stones. No single policy works forever. The key was to adjust constantly based on the actual situation. As long as you could nip any potential crisis in the bud before it erupted, that would be enough. Moreover, this set of rules wasn't a cure-all, applicable everywhere in the Han tribe. It was only suitable for agricultural commanderies and counties. For those who made a living by fishing, crafting, or herding, you couldn't very well have them get fishing grounds, mines, or pastures by having children, could you? That would be ridiculous. Therefore, you still had to tailor policies to local conditions, develop local specialized economies, and formulate laws and development plans suited to the local populace. Dense clauses filled the animal hide you were writing on. Paper wasn't easy to preserve. You initially thought about calling a meeting with your county officials to brainstorm, but on second thought, forget it. Those guys were fine for running errands, relaying messages, or executing orders. But asking them to participate in strategic planning, in setting the rules, did they have the brains or the vision for that? At this thought, a profound sense of the transmigrator's loneliness washed over you. Surrounded by tens of thousands of people, a vast sea of faces, yet not a single one could truly discuss important matters with you, exchange ideas, and spark off each other intellectually. The students you personally trained were, at best, capable of being executors of the rules. You had to tell them steps 1, 2, 3, and only then could they follow instructions. Ask them to create rules from 0 to 1 themselves? Give me a break. They hadn't even heard of your concepts like state, taxation, or centralized authority. Their minds were still stuck in the primitive tribal era where everything belongs to the tribe. There was a gap of millennia between you and them. How could it be bridged? What could he do? You couldn't help but press your forehead and let out a long sigh. This is too damn hard. But no matter how hard it was, you had to bear it alone. No choice. Who asked you to be the boss? He who wishes to wear the crown must bear its weight. If you wanted to be the leader, you had to be prepared to work yourself to death. The most exhausting job in the world was probably that of a founding ruler like you, especially one hell-bent on establishing centralized authority, seemingly holding the world in your hands with the power of life and death. But in reality, you had to worry about every trivial detail. Feudalism? You hadn't even considered it. That system only breeds a bunch of feudal lords prone to infighting, endlessly squabbling amongst themselves. eventually leading to chaos like the Warring States period, with constant warfare and widespread suffering. How were the common people supposed to live? You firmly believed that only unification, only centralized power, could twist the entire nation's strength into a single rope, concentrating resources to accomplish great things. For example, say you wanted to climb the tech tree, invent something. But the materials needed for your invention were scattered, a little bit in the eastern vassal state, a little bit in the western one, and the two were constantly at war, hostile towards each other. How could you possibly achieve anything then? How could you enrich the state and strengthen the military? Therefore, from the very beginning, the tone of unified rule had to be set. Even if you died later, no matter how your descendants messed things up, at least they'd have the rules and example set by you, their founding ancestor. They'd have to think twice before straying too far, wouldn't they? Just as you were chewing on your stylus, racking your brains, simulating various possibilities, patching loopholes in your new policies, and formulating detailed rules of the aim. Other people in this world weren't idle either. They were also observing, learning, and progressing. Halfway through the first month of spring, the grasslands were once again cloaked in fresh green. Countless nomadic tribes began their annual migration, driving their cattle and sheep towards the lush spring and summer pastures where water and grass were plentiful. They would spend several months there, waiting for their livestock to give birth to healthy young, and for the calves and lambs to be able to graze independently before striking camp again and moving to the next fertile land. Amidst the vast grasslands, Surit's tribe was also among the migrating columns. This was all thanks to, or perhaps due to, the Han trade caravans you had dispatched. Last year, Surit had traded his tribe's cattle, horses, pelts, and other local products for a full 6 simple, 2-wheeled single-horse carts from the caravan. This had made Surit absolutely ecstatic. With these carts, tribal migration had become incredibly convenient. The previously cumbersome felt tents and household goods that were difficult to transport could now be tossed onto the carts and pulled along. Although the carts looked a bit shabby, incomparable to the fancy carriages of the Han trade caravan, their cheapness and practicality were unbeatable. Incredible value for money. At this moment, Surit sat on one of the creaking carts, moving slowly with the column. He wore a grayish-white, slightly yellowish woolen robe, woolen trousers, cowhide riding boots, and a leather cap. His entire outfit, from style to fabric, almost entirely imitated the Han traders. The cut of the trousers, boots, and robe, even the needles, thread, and awls used to make the clothes, were all learned or traded from the Han tribe. Of course, Surit's tribe hadn't copied everything exactly. They incorporated their own characteristics. For instance, polished sheep bones were used as buttons or decorations on the robes, which were made longer and slit on all 4 sides for ease of riding. More notably, though seated on the bumpy cart, Surit's hands were not idle. He was intently whittling a piece of wood with a small, sharp dagger obtained from the Han tribe. The shape of the wood was clearly the beginnings of a high-cantled saddle. Beside him even lay 2 rattan circles connected by leather straps, looking suspiciously like stirrups. Surit was meticulous, carefully carving out that high-cantled saddle. Next, he laid down thick felt padding, covered it with the finest lambskin, and glued everything seamlessly together with boiled rhinoceros hide adhesive. Finally, he added some flashy grassland-style decorations. Voila! An exquisite saddle, with both ends rising high, looking particularly impressive, was complete. Making this thing had taken tremendous effort, mainly because iron tools were too rare. Surit could only use his treasured iron dagger, painstakingly gouging out the wood bit by bit. It felt almost like trying to sculpt the statue of David with nail clippers. Over the past 2 years, thanks to the Han tribe trade caravans you sent wandering the grasslands, more and more tribes had become aware of you lot, the big shots holed up in the mountains. You had money, or at least appeared to, and your technology was practically miraculous. Ox carts and horse carriages ran smoothly. Pottery bowls and porcelain gleamed dazzlingly. Iron pots stewing meat sent aromas drifting for miles. And then there was the life-saving salt, the dense woolen cloth, yarn fine enough to thread a needle, sharp iron needles and awls. Every single item was quality stuff. Most crucial, however, were your Han tribe warriors, well-equipped, with gazes that could kill. That was the foundation of your ability to stride confidently across the grasslands. Upon seeing your wealth, the first reaction of many tribes was, fucking rob them. But Surit had a peculiar way of thinking. He preferred doing business with you. It wasn't that he was particularly kind-hearted, purely that this fellow had a high opinion of himself and felt that robbing a trade caravan for mere peanuts was beneath him. Robbing yielded little of value and could potentially bring about the annihilation of his tribe. Only a fool would do that. My tribe is not yet a match for the Han tribe. Surit knew this as clearly as looking into a mirror, unlike those reckless fools blinded by profit who actively threw themselves onto your blades. If I'm going to rob, he schemed secretly, I won't rob them of their paltry goods. I'll rob them of those engineers who know how to make things. His large hands, covered in scars, tightly gripped the gleaming iron dagger. The cuts on his hands were all mementos from this winter's saddle project. Surit truly cherished this iron dagger. Slaughtering cattle and sheep, skinning hides and stripping bones, it was incredibly handy. 1,000,000 times better than those useless stone knives and pathetic bone tools. Unfortunately, it was too damn expensive. That profiteering merchant named Yu Fu had demanded 2 whole cows for this little thing. He had gritted his teeth and traded for 2, his heart bleeding. These 2 useless trinkets actually cost more than a flatbed cart. They clearly have so much iron. Their warriors' long swords are almost as tall as children. But they're just stingy, refusing to sell it to us. Surit ground his teeth inwardly, but soon he understood. Smart people could always understand the thinking of other smart people. If he were the one who controlled the manufacturing technique for this divine tool, he would absolutely not sell it easily to others. Wouldn't that just be asking for trouble? What if the buyer used the weapon you sold them to stab you in the back later? Therefore, Surit held no ill will towards your Han tribe. On the contrary, he rather admired you, the great chief known only by reputation. He felt you were as smart as he was. No, even smarter. Listening to that kid Yu Fu boast, all these incredible things were developed by their chief leading the tribe's people. The methods were all taught by the chief. The Han tribe's chief is truly remarkable, Surit praised sincerely. A head-on clash was definitely unwinnable, so robbery was out of the question. As for kidnapping your craftsman, even more of a pipe dream. Never mind that he didn't know where your main base was. Even if he did, sneaking over there would be purely suicidal. Why must we resort to fighting and killing? Surit thought again. Even without that, I can still benefit. Behind his 6 precious carts trailed a long line of listless slaves, or perhaps prisoners of war was a more fitting term. At the front and rear of the column, numerous cavalrymen patrolled back and forth. Although these riders weren't using his newly made advanced saddles and stirrups, they were all clad in leather armor and wore leather helmets. This too was advanced experience, learned from your Han tribe trade caravans. Last winter, after parting ways with Yu Fu's caravan, Surit had personally witnessed how cavalry wearing leather armor could withstand the bone arrows of the grasslanders. He had immediately committed it to memory. Making this stuff wasn't too difficult. Cut raw cowhide into pieces, string them together with thread spun from sheep's wool, and shape it like clothing. Of course, it couldn't compare to your Han tribe's finely crafted leather armor, coated with multiple layers of lacquer and gleaming smoothly. The grasslands lacked the conditions for such surface treatment, but that didn't stop it from being effective. Tools, readily available. They had bought a pile of iron scissors from Yu Fu, originally sold for shearing sheep. Turns out they were great for cutting cowhide, too. Punching holes in the leather armor wasn't hard either. They had purchased iron awls specifically designed for stitching shoe soles. Just like that, Surit managed to scrape together a beggar version leather-armored cavalry unit of over 300 men. The horse tack was still the old style. The bows were still simple composite bows, and the arrowheads were still bone or stone. But at least they had learned to fletch the arrows' tails with feathers for stability. Another trick learned from you. Then, throughout the entire winter, Surit led this low-spec leather-armored force, seemingly high on stimulants, making courtesy calls on the weak tribes nearby. The leather armor proved exceptionally effective. In archery duels with enemies, it was practically a dimensional reduction strike, a completely overwhelming advantage. When both sides loosed arrows simultaneously, the result was often the enemy's bone arrows clattered harmlessly off the leather armor or failed to penetrate deeply, while their own arrows could inflict true damage on the enemy. Relying on this slight technological edge, Surit hadn't been idle all winter, educating several unlucky small tribes around his territory. One by one, the results were outstanding. Over 4,000 captured people. Adding them to the tribe's original population of over 1,000, the number of herdsmen under Surit swelled to over 6,000. Of course, adult men were few among these. Most were captured women and children. Additionally, large herds of livestock seized from the various tribes totaled over 20,000 head of cattle, horses, and sheep. Gazing at the dark mass of livestock ahead, then glancing back at the long string of captives behind, Surit sat on the cart, a satisfied smile spreading across his face like that of a newly rich local tyrant. "See, isn't this great?" he muttered smugly to himself. "Why insist on tackling that hard bone, the Han tribe? Just learning a few superficial things from them brought me so many spoils. Ha 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 ha." The surrounding tribesmen looked blankly at their chief, who was suddenly laughing foolishly at the air, completely bewildered. However, it didn't matter. The mounted warriors were all beaming with joy. Last year's winter hunt had not only fattened the tribe, but had also brought them substantial personal benefits. Each man had received at least one woman. Who wouldn't be happy about such good fortune? Having laughed his fill, Surit began to ponder again. If only I could get saddles and stirrups like the Han tribes, and maybe some metal weapons, that would be perfect. He picked up the still warm milk freshly squeezed by a slave, gulped it down, his gaze falling on the silver bowl gleaming whitely in his hand, and his mind began to wander again. Forget about Han tribe weapons. They're too stingy, impossible to trade for. Even if I could, they'd be prohibitively expensive, can't afford to equip anyone. But what about that mediocre Shin tribe, the ones who also dabble in metalworking? I wonder, can they produce ironware? Single-mindedly wanting to learn advanced techniques from foreigners to strengthen oneself, Surit, having confirmed that getting ironware from you was hopeless, stubbornly turned his covetous eyes towards another nomadic trading tribe active on the grasslands, the Shin tribe, who also knew their way around metal. However, what Surit didn't know was that, at this very moment, the Shin tribe was having an incredibly frustrating time. In the late autumn of last year, the Grand Chieftain of the Shin tribe waited with bated breath, hoping the dispatched trade caravan would bring back even just one sample of the legendary Han tribe divine cart. Instead, what arrived wasn't an ox cart capable of hauling hundreds of jin of grain, but a group of battered and defeated soldiers who had lost their armor and even their horses. The large shipment of sea salt taken for trade? Gone. The various grain seeds carefully prepared to exchange for technology? Also gone. Even the pack horses had become someone else's property. The 100 or so elite warriors dispatched for this technological exchange. More than half dead. Fewer than 30 returned alive. These 30 unlucky souls, let alone bringing back sample oxen or sheep, hadn't even managed to keep their own mounts, having walked back from the grasslands on their own 2 feet. This outcome was 100,000 miles away from the Grand Chieftain's expectations. He practically exploded with rage on the spot, his lungs about to burst. The losses were catastrophic. Goods could be replaced, but dead men were truly gone. The Grand Chieftain needed an explanation, The families of the deceased needed closure even more. Woo woo woo. Grand Chieftain. The old merchant elder leading the caravan threw himself to the ground, tears and snot streaming down his face, beginning his performance. That Han tribe, they're absolutely despicable, so tyrannical and overbearing. We offered seeds for carts, and not only did they refuse, they just started killing and robbing us. After robbing us, they even threatened me. Said the Shin tribe is forbidden from selling white salt on the grasslands ever again. Kill on sight. Just listen to this. This is utter contempt for our Xin tribe. Grand Chieftain, you must avenge our fallen brothers. Woo woo woo. Listening to the old man's wailing, the Grand Chieftain felt a headache coming on, his mind in turmoil. He gave a cold sneer, staring at the merchant elder on the ground. Yes, revenge must be taken. Back then, who was it that beat their chest and guaranteed me they'd bring back carts this time? And now, where did you lead those men, huh? The Grand Chieftain was furious, slamming his palm down on the nearby bamboo tea table. Bang! The tea set flew off. Men! He pointed at the still howling merchant elder and roared fiercely. Drag this old fool out, chop him up. The head, hands, feet, body. Hang them all on that big tree outside for me. Tell the families of the dead. It's this bastard's fault. He's the one who failed to bring the men back. The merchant elder, who had been wailing on the ground, cursing the Han tribe, felt his body jolt upon hearing this death sentence. He instantly wet himself in terror. No matter how much he begged for mercy, the Grand Chieftain's mind was made up. Soon, the merchant elder became a decoration on the large tree in the center of Clear Spring Valley. The families of the dead immediately rushed over, dividing the corpse piece by piece, taking parts back to mourn their relatives. The Grand Chieftain wasn't stupid. After such a major incident, a scapegoat was needed to quell public anger. Besides, the stupid idea of trading seeds for carts was originally the merchant elder's proposal. Who else to kill but him? Seek revenge against the Han tribe? What a joke. They didn't even know where the Han tribe lived. So first, execute the merchant elder to let everyone vent their anger. Of course, the subordinates didn't know, but the Grand Chieftain understood perfectly well in his heart. The root cause of this mess still lay with the Han tribe. Those mountain folk were too domineering. Refusing the trade was one thing, but killing people and stealing goods. Utterly outrageous. The more the Grand Chieftain thought about it, the angrier he became. Yet he was helpless. Fight back? Unrealistic. But those carts were just too important. Failing to acquire them meant huge losses. Fortunately, while the merchant elder was making his guarantees, the Shin tribe's own research and development department hadn't been idle, constantly trying to build carts. Now, it seemed, there was some progress. Men. At this thought, the Grand Chieftain's spirits lifted. Summon all those involved in cart making. Building carts wasn't easy. It required coordination between several departments. After nearly half a year, the Shin tribe had actually managed to cobble something together. Soon, a group of technicians arrived nervously before the Grand Chieftain's bamboo house, bringing their research results. Grand Chieftain. The elder of tools, responsible for implements, spoke cautiously. He had just heard the merchant elder was dismembered, and his legs were trembling. This is a pottery wheel cart we fired from clay. The wheels are pottery. It works okay. Can carry 4 bags of grain at a time. He paused, his voice growing softer. But it's just too heavy and the wheels aren't sturdy. If they hit a hard rock, they tend to shatter. If it doesn't work, why the hell are you telling me? The Grand Chieftain interrupted irritably. Wasting time. Get lost. The elder of tools retreated dejectedly. Another minor leader involved. In cart making quickly stepped forward, pointing to a very crude wooden flatbed cart nearby. Grand Chieftain, this one is a 2-wheeled cart made entirely of wood. It works too. I made it based on descriptions of the Han tribe carts. You can hitch a horse to the front and pull it. I just don't know if it's the same as the Han tribes. Oh? The Grand Chieftain's eyes lit up. Entirely made of wood? How did you manage that? Grand Chieftain, It was made using a new kind of alloy tool we developed. The three elders responsible for metallurgy immediately rushed to claim credit. Alloy? That's right, one elder explained. It's these few golden axes. We tested the tribe's 3 types of gold, likely copper, tin, lead, etc., and none were as strong or hard as the Han tribe's iron scissors. So we thought, maybe this metal called iron is inherently superior to our 3 golds? We tried melting down the traded iron scissors and recasting them into axe heads. Hey, it actually worked! These iron axes chop wood incredibly fast, several times better than our best red gold copper axes. Unfortunately, we can't smelt iron ourselves. We only have that little bit, not enough. Later, we wondered, could we melt the iron and add it to red gold? Copper? See if eating the iron could make the red gold harder. Turns out, it actually worked. Then we tried mixing our own white gold, probably a mix of tin, lead, silver with red gold, copper, and found the effect wasn't much worse than adding iron. The elder proudly produced several gleaming yellow metal tools, an axe, a replica, pair of scissors, and a short sword. This way we can mass-produce alloy tools ourselves. As these 3 items were presented, the Grand Chieftain grew even more interested. He hefted each one, finally clutching the short sword, unable to put it down. This was smelted from white gold and red gold? Yes, Chieftain, but we don't know what to call it yet, the elders answered honestly. Also, we found that different ratios of white gold and red gold produce alloys of varying hardness. More white gold makes it harder, less makes it softer. We're still figuring out the ideal proportion. Not bad, not bad. The Grand Chieftain was very pleased. With this stuff, who needs the Han tribe's iron? From now on, we'll use this alloy to make tools. He waved his hand grandly. Since you don't know what to call it. Since it's smelted from white gold and red gold, let's just call it white-red gold. The elders quickly flattered him. The chieftain is wise. Little did they know, their white-red gold was precisely the bronze alloy you had phased out. It was a case of a blind cat bumping into a dead mouse, stumbling upon it. Of course, this had much to do with their substandard smelting techniques, the impurity of their copper, red gold, and the mix of tin, lead, and other impurities in their so-called white gold. After examining the new tools, the Grand Chieftain's gaze fell back on the wooden cart. This cart was difficult to describe. The crucial wheels, axle, and frame were made of wood, but the less important cart bed was woven from thick bamboo strips. The wheel rim, spokes, hub, axle, frame, all were crudely chopped into stick or strip shapes with axes. Not a single flat, smooth plank could be found on the entire vehicle. There was no helping it. Although they now had bronze axes, they lacked the carpenter's divine tools, saws and planes. The carts they produced could only look this weather-beaten, covered in chop marks. At the Grand Chieftain's request, the cart-making team leader brought over an ox and hitched it to the cart. The cart moved forward crookedly, creaking loudly, but at least it didn't fall apart. It was uncertain how long it would last once loaded. Seeing a homemade ox cart for the first time, the Grand Chieftain was still quite excited. He personally sat on the cart bed, had the team leader drive the ox in front, and took a tour around the valley. A miracle occurred. The cart, which looked like it could disintegrate at any moment, didn't break down. The onlookers immediately cheered, exclaiming what a good thing this cart was, making transport so much easier. The Grand Chieftain felt the same way, and quickly asked the team leader, "How long does it take to build one of these carts?" Reporting to the chieftain, the team leader answered honestly, "This one took 8 moons, cycles, to build, mainly because it was the first time, lacking experience, many problems, and we hadn't seen a real one, which caused delays. If we were to build an identical one again, I estimate, it would probably take about 5 full moons." That long? His recently improved mood instantly plummeted again. "Yes, chieftain," the team leader sighed. "Even with these alloy axes, it's still time-consuming and laborious. I heard that the Han tribe, when the grassland tribes wanted to buy carts last time, produced dozens by the next visit. Although they only sold 2-wheeled ones, it's still incredibly fast. I think it must be related to their tools. They must have even better iron implements. Like these Han tribe scissors. He picked up a replica. They look like just 2 knives pinned together, nothing remarkable. But this small modification allows them to do things knives can't. The Han tribe is so clever. They must have other great tools we don't know about. The Grand Chieftain nodded, pondered for a moment, then suddenly asked, "But what does this have to do with us? What are you really trying to say?" The cart-making team leader dropped to one knee with a thump. "Grand Chieftain, I am willing to lead a team back to the grasslands, even if we have to accept the Han tribe's conditions and only sell salt by the sea. That's fine. Or we could sell it at a higher price, not lower than theirs. Anyway, the salt buyers are grasslanders. It doesn't harm us. We don't necessarily have to oppose the Han tribe. As long as we can interact with them on equal footing, as long as we can still reach the grassland tribes, we can discover more of the Han tribe's good things. Even if they don't sell directly to us, we can learn more of their techniques from the grasslands. Even we could send gifts to the Han tribe, request an audience with their chief, negotiate trade, go see their tribe with our own eyes, see how they live, what good things they have that we don't know about. Then, if even one person can return and record what they saw, it would be a tremendous benefit to our tribe. Like this cart. Before, we moved things by carrying or lifting, at most using baskets and shoulder pulls. Now with carts, how much effort can be saved? This isn't just a small benefit, it's a huge advantage for our entire Shin tribe. I implore the chieftain to allow me to lead men to the Han tribe." The team leader's face was sincere. The Grand Chieftain listened, silent for a long while, tapping his fingers on the armrest, weighing the pros and cons. After a considerable time, he looked at the kneeling team leader and asked non-committally, "I remember the news that the Han tribe had carts usable by oxen and horses, capable of carrying heavy loads. You brought that back from the grasslands, didn't you?" "Right. The suggestion to build carts was also first proposed by you?" Reporting. "To the chieftain, yes," the team leader replied immediately. The Grand Chieftain nodded. "But the merchant elder went. The Han tribe refused to trade, killed our people and stole our goods. The elder couldn't accomplish it. So you think you can? Besides, aren't you afraid of ending up like those men last time dying out there?" "Reporting to the chieftain," the team leader puffed out his chest. "As long as I can bring more advanced technology and tools to the tribe, death is worthwhile. My only fear is failing to learn valuable things, failing to bring them back to offer to the chieftain and our kin." This impassioned speech somewhat moved the Grand Chieftain. Yes, the last failure was definitely due to that useless merchant elder. Look at this young man before him. Not only did he bring back news of so many good things and the concept of the cart, but he even managed to build a working cart based on descriptions. Much better than the merchant elder. Perhaps sending him might actually achieve something? As he said, even learning just one technique would be worth it. With this thought, the Grand Chieftain hesitated no longer and personally helped the team leader up. "What is your name?" Reporting to the chieftain, "My name is New Wei, Oxtail." "Ha ha ha ha." The Grand Chieftain laughed. "Oxtails are always swishing. Deed like you, never idle. Since that's the case, then you lead a group back to the grasslands. See if you can infiltrate the Han tribe's settlement. You were originally a minor leader under the merchant elder. Now that I've dealt with that old fool, from this moment on, you are the new merchant elder. I hope you won't disappoint me and can actually achieve what you've said. As for the specific arrangements, how many men you need, decide for yourself. Just let me know before you leave." The Grand Chieftain patted Niu Wei's shoulder encouragingly. "Thank you, Chieftain. I will make arrangements immediately. I absolutely will not disappoint." The Chieftain, Niu Wei, was ecstatic. He had only intended to go broaden his horizons, but unexpectedly got promoted directly to the new merchant elder, entering the tribe's core power circle in one step. He bowed repeatedly in thanks. However, after calming down, Niu Wei also understood. His position as merchant elder meant little. The previous one's bones weren't even cold, literally still hanging on the tree. If he also returned empty-handed this time, his fate would likely be the same. Besides, according to those who returned last time, the Han tribe was unreasonable, and their warriors were incredibly fierce. Whether he could even return alive from this trip was uncertain. No point worrying about that now. Having made up his mind, Niu Wei began selecting team members and preparing goods and gifts. The process wasn't smooth. Supplies were fine. With the Grand Chieftain's support, no one dared obstruct him. But choosing personnel was difficult. Last time, over 100 went, fewer than 30 returned, all half dead. This mission was too risky, the benefits uncertain, and very few were willing to go seek death with him. Niu Wei had a solution. Simple and crude, direct cash payments. Anyone willing to go with him would have a sum of settlement money sent to their family first, essentially buying their lives in advance. Under heavy reward, there will always be brave men, or desperate ones driven mad by poverty. He managed to recruit some reckless youths, plus some old team members who had followed him before, finally scraping together 40 men. Early spring, the last day of the first month of the new year. After bidding farewell to the Grand Chieftain, Niu Wei resolutely led this suicide squad onto the reef connecting Bamboo Island to the mainland, heading towards that legendary land, a civilized nation both dangerous and full of temptation. This time, he wanted to see it with his own eyes. The first day of the second month of spring, in the 4th year since your arrival in this world, the entire tribe's spring plowing had concluded. Spring wheat and corn had been sown and sprouted tender shoots. Rice paddies had been transplanted. Across the 3 commanderies under your rule, the farmlands presented a scene of vibrant life. In the half-month since returning from the flood, control frontline, you hadn't been idle either. You formulated plans for land reform, government administration methods, taxation systems, and the tribe's overarching future development strategy. Now, with the agricultural work finished, it was the perfect time to implement these new rules. To coordinate with this major reform, the first chapter of the Rights of Han, painstakingly crafted, or rather dredged from memory and heavily modified by you, the 20 Ranks of Meritocracy of the Great Han Empire, was finally released. In your previous life, you weren't exactly a history buff. You vaguely remembered the Shin and Han dynasties had a 20-rank system of military meritocracy, but the specific names, benefits, and social status of each rank were mostly forgotten, save for a few incomplete names, but no matter. Blindly copying others wasn't reliable. Every civilization has its own national conditions. Directly transplanting might not work well anyway. Therefore, combining your pitiful memory fragments and considering the actual situation of the Han tribe, you tailor-made this world's Han tribe special 20 ranks of meritocracy. Rank 0, Jianshou Chak Beixing, commoners. No rank. Hair tied in a bun wrapped with black cloth. Congratulations, you are a glorious member of the masses. Rank 1, Gongshi, public servant, meaning begins working. For the public. Headcloth changes from black to brown. Granted 20 mu of land, also taxed. Social status. Can serve as a squad leader, overseeing 4 neighbors. Assistant squad leader during corvée labor. Village security guard. Rank 2, Danjin, crimson scarf. Headcloth changes from brown to deep red. Granted another 20 mu of land. Social status. Can serve as a group leader, overseeing 9 neighbors. Minor standard bearer, squad leader, in military service, low-level clerk in a township. Rank 3, Shanzuo, skilled worker, meaning good at working. E.g., skilled farmer, master carpenter, or blacksmith. Granted another 20 mu of land. Headwear upgrades from cloth to a wooden headband. Social status, formal minor official in the township, deputy platoon leader in the army. Rank 4, Jizuo, intelligent worker, working intelligently. Being capable isn't enough. One must use their brain. This rank specifically encourages invention and creation. Develop a useful invention, discover new medicinal herbs, breed new crops. As long as it's useful to the tribe, submit for verification, immediate enfeoffment. Granted another 20 mu of land. Headwear is a leather headband. Benefit upgrade. Reaching this rank exempts one from corvée labor. Social status, minor official. At the county level, department clerk, platoon leader in the army. Your inner calculation must cultivate the nation's innovative spirit. Can't rely solely on me, the transmigrator. If I die, will progress halt or even reverse? Absolutely not. Rank 5, Gushu, steadfast head. Headwear is a leather headband plus wooden hairpin. Hairpin used to secure the bun, hence the name. Meaning, one should be steady and upright in conduct. Granted another 20 mu of land. Social status, county-level section chief, deputy company commander in the army. Rank 6, Gushin, steadfast body, reminds the rank holder to be steady and proper, not forgetting. Their original purpose. Headwear is a leather headband, plus translucent antelope horn hairpin. Major benefit upgrade, granted another ching, 100 mu of land. Social status, deputy county magistrate level, company commander in the army. Rank 7, Guban, steadfast root, a reminder to prioritize agriculture. Headwear is a leather headband plus bronze hairpin, specifically shaped like a hoe. Granted another ching, 100 mu of land. Social status, county magistrate, company political officer, responsible for ideology, logistics, military law in the army. Reaching this position means at least 300 plus mu of land, enough to support the family and hire a private secretary or registrar, as the state doesn't pay salaries. Rank 8, Xiao Yu, minor instructor. Headwear upgrades to a bored crown, resembling an open book, paired with a silver hairpin. The style clearly indicates a connection to education and culture. Granted another ching, 100 mu of land. Family land approaching 400-500 mu. Social status, minor official at the commandery level or a county school principal. Deputy battalion commander in the army. Rank 9, Shan Yu, skilled instructor. Headwear is a long board crown plus silver hairpin. Granted another ching, 100 mu of land. Total land over 500 mu. Social status, commandery department section chief, minor. Bureau chief or commandery school principal. Battalion commander in the army. Rank 10, Shaoliang, minor pillar, meaning secondary pillar of the state. Headwear formally upgrades to a liang crown, official hat indicating rank. Granted another ching, 100 mu of land. Totaling over 600 mu, definitely a large landowner. Social status, commandery governor, mayor level. Battalion political commissar in the army. The 20 ranks of nobility you established had a watershed starting from the 10th rank, Shaoliang, minor pillar. Shaoliang could already serve as a commandery governor, mayor, representing the ceiling. For local officials. Further up, starting from the 11th rank, one would truly step into the core of power, enter the imperial court, and participate in central decision-making. Rank 11, Daifu, Grand Officer, wears the Liang crown, can hold a minor position in the central government, or achieve the rank of Deputy Guard Commander, Deputy Regiment level, in the military. Benefit, still an additional ching, 100 mu of land. Rank 12, Xiao Yin, minor aide, Yin means assistant. At this rank, one could serve as a deputy head in the major central directorates. Ministries. Examples, Deputy Director of the Directorate of Education, Guozijian, Directorate of Astronomy, Qintianjian, Directorate of Waterways, Dushuijian, Directorate of the Imperial Treasury, Xiaofujian, Directorate of Armaments, Zhangqijian, etc. In the military, one could be a guard adjutant, deputy regiment level chief of staff, responsible for military law, training, and strategy. Benefit: another king of land. Rank 13. Zhengchen, upright minister, can serve as the head director of the major directorates, or hold a division-level position in one of the 6 ministries, or serve as a censor in the Censorate, Central Disciplinary Committee, Supreme Procuratorate. In the military, this is a guard commander, full regiment commander, commanding about 1,000 men. Benefit: another king of land. Rank 14, Xiaoqing, minor minister, can serve as the deputy head of the 9 ministries and the senior ministries. Examples: Vice Minister of Justice, Dali Si Xiaoqing; Vice Minister of Rights, Foreign Affairs, Honglu Si Xiaoqing; Vice Minister of Agriculture, Xinong Si Xiaoqing; also, Deputy Director of the Imperial Provisioning Office, or serve as a department director within the 6 ministries, managing specific affairs and reporting directly to the minister or vice minister. In the military, this is a guard commandant, regiment political commissar, responsible for propaganda, intelligence, logistics, etc. Benefit: another king of land. Rank 15. Shangqing, senior minister, can serve as the head minister-president of the 9 ministries, or a senior department director in the 6 ministries. Benefit: still another king of land. Note: starting from Shangqing, the benefits mark another watershed. In the military, one could serve as a lieutenant general, Pianjiang. However, this is usually a temporary wartime appointment, such as Vanguard General or Flank Protection General, allowed to command 1 or 2 guards, regiments, independently. Ranks 16, 20, top-tier nobility, divided into civil and military. These 5 highest ranks begin to differentiate between civil and military tracks and can receive titles and, potentially, fiefdoms. Rank 16, Shangzhou, Baron. Rank 17, Xiao Shangzhou, Viscount. Rank 18, Da Shangzhou, Earl. Rank 19, Shaozai, Marquis. Rank 20, Taizai, Duke. Benefits and treatment: Baron Shangzhou. No fixed fiefdom, granted at the emperor's discretion, possibly with a few more king of land. Military officers can receive a prestigious honorific title, but not based on a place name. Viscount, Duke, may receive a fiefdom, or it might be nominal, only granting title and monetary material rewards. Even with a real fiefdom, it's generally only at the township or county level, maximum size not exceeding a county. Fiefdom rights: the fief holder can take half of the agricultural tax revenue from within the fief. But they have no administrative power. Fief officials are still appointed by the state, and decrees remain consistent with the central government. Dare to change the rules privately. Considered treason. Corresponding civil service positions. Ranks: US18 Baron Earl, constitute the main leadership of the 6 ministries. The highest, Da Shangzhou, Earl, can serve as minister of one of the 6 ministries, full ministerial level. Ranks 19-20, Marquis Duke, equivalent to Grand Secretary of the Cabinet or Left-Right Chancellor. However, for you, the founding emperor, a notorious power hog, as long as you were still breathing, these last 2 highest positions, Shaozai, Taizai, would absolutely not be established. 2 reasons: unnecessary. With the 6 ministries working for you, you could manage. No one worthy. Looking across the entire Han tribe besides yourself, who had the ability to manage the entire country single-handedly. What is a chancellor? That's the emperor's deputy, the person who steps up to lead the nation when the emperor is slacking off, deceased, or the new emperor is too young. Truly second only to one, above tens of thousands. That's too much power. You had no intention of distributing power so early. However, cultivating 1 or 2 chancellor prospects in advance was worth considering. If you suddenly kicked the bucket one day, at least someone could assist your kid. Alternatively, a compromise: when your son inherits the throne, establish a cabinet regency. The Grand Secretaries would first review memorials from various regions, write down proposed actions, and then submit them to the Emperor. If the Emperor approved, he'd draw a red circle, indicating agreement with the Cabinet's opinion. This way, the Emperor still held half the power, the final decision. If he disagreed, he could summon the Cabinet elders for discussion. This model suits a ruler maintaining an established state, but for a groundbreaking founding ancestor like you, it was entirely superfluous. In this world, who could possibly understand governance better than you? Enfeoffment process. First 3 ranks, Gongshi, Danjin, Shanzuo. Reviewed and granted by the county magistrate, reported annually to the central government. Ranks 4 to 6, Jizuo, Gushu, Gushin. Reviewed and granted by the commandery. Governor recorded rank 7, Gubin and above. Merits reported to the central government. Reviewed and approved for enfeoffment by the central authority. Hereditary succession. Below rank 10. Hereditary for 3 generations, descending 1 rank each generation, eventually reverting to commoner status. Rank 10 and above, hereditary. For 5 generations, descending 1 rank each generation, also eventually reverting to commoner status. Why decrease rank with inheritance? Prevent title inflation and devaluation. Over time, as the population grows, more people gain titles, land becomes insufficient for enfeoffment, and the value of titles diminishes. Daifu, as common as dogs, earls everywhere, is unacceptable. The common people must maintain a desire for titles. Prevent nth-generation nobles from occupying positions without merit. The phenomenon of heroic fathers having worthless sons is too common. If titles were perpetually hereditary, wouldn't it waste benefits? Land and resources are limited. Giving them to capable individuals ensures they are put to best use. This was just a small part of your rights of Han, just the ranks of meritocracy. Chapter was this complex yet indispensable. It was the cornerstone for the normal functioning of the state machine. First day of the 2nd month of spring, you arrived at the flag platform in the central square of the tribe. Although no sacrifices were being held today, the occasion was no less important. Several large wooden boards had already been erected. In the square, densely pasted with the details of the 20 ranks of meritocracy you had just established. On a large table nearby lay piles of head ornaments, headscarves, headbands, hairpins, of different colors and materials, corresponding to the various noble ranks. For this event, you weren't the protagonist, but sat nearby as a special guest, just observing. The protagonist was the magistrate of Hanyang County. The event began. First, the magistrate presided over the coming-of-age ceremony, placing the black headscarves representing Qianshu Baixing on several hundred young men and women who had just reached adulthood this year. After the ceremony, these youths began chattering and pairing up, starting their matchmaking. Matchmaking in primitive society was just that direct. Next, the magistrate began educating the several hundred household heads present about the nobility system, private land ownership, militarized administration, tax obligations, military service, and other civic duties. After droning on for a long time, leaving everyone mostly bewildered, he finally got to the main theme of the day, the relocation order, tribesmen. The magistrate cleared his throat and announced loudly, "By order of the chief, this year 300 households are to be selected from our Hanyang city and relocated to the newly established Ruyang Commandery and Fuma Pass." He paused, seemingly anticipating the crowd's reaction, and added, "The chief has said, perhaps people are reluctant to leave Hanyang and unwilling to pioneer new lands. No problem. The tribe will provide compensation for families willing to relocate." As soon as these words were spoken, the crowd below erupted like a hornet's nest, buzzing with discussion. Huh? Weren't we told there was good news? Why are they suddenly kicking people out? Go to the new city? Sounds nice, isn't that place still mostly wasteland? Moving there means starting everything from scratch. It'll work us to death. Exactly. Our old home here is comfortable. Even if the house is a bit small, we've lived here for years, we're used to it. Move to the new city, who knows? We might end up living in straw huts. Most people were unwilling to move. Hanyang City was the first city of the Han tribe, built brick by brick with their own hands. It held their memories and pride. Even if the new city was better, they were reluctant to leave this home. Even a dog doesn't dislike its humble home. Just as everyone was murmuring and complaining, the magistrate dropped the bombshell. Listen carefully. For any family voluntarily relocating to Ruyang Commandery or Fuma Pass, 1. Directly granted 1 rank of nobility, promoted to Gongshi. 2. Agricultural taxes halved for the first 3 years. Only 20% tax per mu. 3. Renting oxen and horses from the government for plowing is free for the first 3 years. Those willing to go can come register with me now. This time, instead of quieting down, the crowd buzzed even more intensely. The atmosphere instantly reversed. Hey, 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 did you hear? Move house, get promoted, become a gongshi. What's the use of being a gongshi? Can you eat it? I still think staying in the old city is more comfortable. Are you stupid? Didn't you understand just now? The tribe isn't distributing grain anymore. Land is divided. You farm your own food. A gongshi gets an extra 20 mu of land, and taxes are halved. For 3 years, how much extra grain can you save? Yeah, more grain means you can store the surplus if you can't eat it all, and exchange it for that money the chief mentioned. Money can buy meat, buy chicks, lambs, piglets. Then the family can raise livestock, eat meat and eggs every day. More. Livestock means more manure. Compost it for fertilizer, crops grow better. With so many benefits, if you don't go, I will. I need to hurry and register to grab a spot. Among the crowd, several voices rang out particularly loud and clear, logically, analyzing the benefits of relocation. That's right, these were the plants you had arranged beforehand. You knew very well that with private ownership just being implemented, simply stating the compensation benefits wouldn't make sense to many. Someone had to help them interpret the policy dividends. Of course, your aim wasn't incitement, but clear explanation. As for suddenly enfeefing 300 gongshi, you couldn't care less. These 300 households would be divided between 2 new locations, roughly 100-odd households per place. With nearly 20,000 people in both locations combined, what did 300 lowest-ranked nobles matter? A drop in the ocean. Besides, granting these titles wasn't unfair. Hanyang City was built through their hard work. Even if they lacked merit, they had contributed labor. Promoting everyone by 1 rank wouldn't be excessive. The plants you arranged were highly effective, stirring the atmosphere. The reactions from the crowd below began to diverge. The lazy type. Some were unhappy. Under the old communal system, how much you worked barely affected how much you ate. Now, with divided land, laziness could genuinely lead to starvation. The communal pot was better. The striver type. Many more eyes lit up. They yearned for their own property and strongly agreed with farming your own food. Especially the idea that surplus grain could be exchanged for money, and money for various goods. That was incredibly appealing. Everyone started doing their own calculations. Some women whispered to their husbands, save more grain, exchange for money to buy a loom, weave our own clothes in the future, maybe even sell cloth for profit. Those with many children and thus more land, too tiring. Save money to buy an ox or maybe 2 donkeys to help with farm work. The foodies, sell grain for piglets and lambs. From now on, live a good life with meat at every meal. Those finding the old city houses too small. Heard the homesteads allocated in the new city are larger, and with the gongshi title, the homestead is even bigger, worth moving just for that. Watching the crowd in the square gradually become eager to register, you nodded with satisfaction. As long as people have desires, have self-interest, want a better life for their small families, they will be motivated to strive. This matter had pros and cons, but you firmly believed the pros outweighed the cons. Self-interest can stimulate desire, and desire leads to competition. As long as it was healthy competition, it could promote the progress of the entire tribe. Besides, you had already provided them with so many channels for advancement: nobility, education, military merit. There was no reason anyone would lose their mind and stir up trouble, right?